Hello, everybody. This is Talk About It Tuesday with Michaela L. Carson. I'm a writer and author coach, and I'm going to talk with you today, share with you some ideas and things related to social media marketing, specifically as it relates to writers. Um, so many writers shy away from social media marketing, and I think that's because a lot of times we see it really sales heavy. And it can feel like a time-consuming burden, and it just feels really uncomfortable. The really good news is that you don't have to be a marketing guru, or even spend a ton of money on ads or any money on ads to effectively promote your books. And I want to talk with you about that today. Some small strategic changes, utilizing free tools, things like that, to create an online presence that works for you and enables you to still focus on your writing. I have a background in communications and marketing, so this is comfortable for me, and it always surprises me how many authors struggle with this because it just feels foreign to them. And I understand that marketing is a different aspect of the writing process, and it isn't comfortable for most of us, myself included, honestly. But we're going to talk today about how we can do that and lean into the strengths and the gifts that you already have. Okay. So we're not going to try to get you to be someone different than who you are. That's not what God's called you to do, I promise. So hopefully these tips and strategies will help you navigate what managing your social media looks like for you specifically. The first thing I want to talk about is how important it is to optimize your author presence online. So before we even worry about content or think about what to post or when to post, we want to make sure that you're set up properly online to start with. So there's some must-do things that every author really needs. So I'm just going to highlight those really quick. The first one is your Amazon author page. You can set this up through what Amazon calls Author Central. It's author.amazon.com, and you can set up your account that way, and that will allow readers to follow you and see all of your books in one place. If you're publishing for the first time, you do need to have your book published in order to set that up, unless they've changed something recently. So that might be like a first step after you publish, but you want to get that Amazon author page set up. Okay, that's important. The second profile that you want to make sure you have set up is your Goodreads author profile. Goodreads is a platform that the majority of readers are still utilizing. So you want to claim and customize that. And with customizing it for both of these, you're going to put in your bio, you're going to put in your photo, additional information, your social medias, if it'll let you, those kinds of things. And that's the purpose of this, is to connect with the readers. You can update them on new releases. You can participate in discussions with them. So these are markets that are specifically for readers, and it's really to your advantage to utilize those. On Goodreads, to set that up, you would just find your book. Again, you have to be published first. Find your book, and there's a little thing on there that says, "Is this you?" And if it's not already connected to your account, you can click "Is this you?" Fill out the little application, and it'll connect it to you. If your book is not in Goodreads at all, you're brand new. I had to do this the first time you write. There's a way to do that, and it's through the Goodreads librarians. It's kind of a weird process. It's not. It's sort of archaic, honestly. But if you need to do that, let me know. We can talk through it if you can't find your book on Goodreads at all. Okay, social media profiles. We've talked about this before. I've done trainings on this before. Whatever platforms you're on, make sure your bio includes a brief description of your work, a link to your website, and your latest book, or your author page on Goodreads or Amazon, where they can see all your books. You want to make sure you update your profile picture, and your banner, the cover image, to go with your branding, to be marketing the book, your newest release, things like that. There are a lot of resources in the guide section on this part of it. So, well, I guess it's not guides anymore because I'm moving it over to our Google Drive. So in the Google Drive, you're going to find a lot of resources in there that will help you with this part of it if you need some direction. And the last thing I want to mention in relationship to optimizing that presence is featured and pinned content. Depending on the platform, there's different ways of this, and some maybe don't allow it, but the ones that do, make sure you're pinning important posts, about your latest book, upcoming events. If you're doing a book signing, create an event online so people can RSVP that they want to go, and that shares with other people. So you're marketing through doing these basic things. And then even newsletters, on platforms that allow it. So I believe right now you can do this through Facebook, Twitter, X, and LinkedIn. There might be other ones that allow you to pin or feature posts, but that's what you want to be putting up there. Okay, so let's start talking about the marketing part for a second, because this is the part that I know most of us get in our own heads about, and it feels yucky and we don't want to do it. So I want to just tell you something very clearly, and I want you to hear me. Look at my eyes. I'm going to tell you this. You are a writer, okay? I know you're not a marketer and you don't feel like a marketer, but you are a writer, and marketing is writing. So you can do this, okay? You're going to write copy the way you write your blog, the way you write a devotion, the way you write your manuscript. The purpose of this is to connect with your readers. So write the way you write. Don't try to create this polished, cheesy, salesy post. First of all, it's not going to connect with people. You've seen authors who do it. You may have been one of them in the past, and it really doesn't work. Yes, you want to sell your book. Yes, you want to let people know it's out there, but you do that through storytelling. Social media thrives on storytelling, and that's what we do best, right? That is the gift of writing, is storytelling. So share your journey, share your process, share what inspires you. Think of the ways that you can tell your story. Tell the story of your characters if you write fiction. Help your readers go on a journey and get to know your character before they ever pick up the book. If you're writing nonfiction, you know, share impact that your book has had. Like I love sharing what beta readers have said, or early readers, depending on what you call it. Share those comments, share the feedback, share when they send you a DM or a text message and say, "Oh my gosh, this was so good. Our Bible study was doing this," and blah, blah. Share those things. That's storytelling. Um, so we think that content is hard and we allow that to overwhelm us, but we don't need to, because you are a writer. God has called you to this, He's equipped you for this, and marketing is just an extension of your writing. Okay. All right, we're going to break it down, because the other thing I think that gets really overwhelming, especially if you follow any content groups or anything like that, is there's a lot of terminology in marketing. There's a lot of descriptions and ways they talk about social media posts. And if you're new to it or you're not a big fan of social media, I'm honestly not. Those things can kind of get in our heads too. And it's like, oh, I don't know what they mean by that. And so I want to just kind of break some of this down really simply. There are different types of content, okay? And it's important to mix up the types of content, because that keeps people engaged with you and what you're posting. I'm gonna walk you through just like 5 types of content, and I've been in this industry a long time. They're called a lot of different things by a lot of different people. It doesn't actually matter what you call them, as long as the messaging is there and you know what the purpose of your content is, you're fine. So don't get hung up in the titles and labels of it all. That doesn't matter. The variety is what matters. Okay. So the first one that I want to talk about is informational posts. This type of content can be writing tips. It can be publishing advice. Maybe you're writing to other writers, and that's part of who your following is. You can share publishing advice. If you're writing fiction, publishing, or I'm sorry, not publishing, posting behind the scenes. That works for all of us, actually. It doesn't have to just be fiction. Behind the scenes stuff, opening your author proof, hitting the submit button for approval, like all of those behind the scenes things work really well for writers. So informational is just exactly that. It's sharing information about your book or your writing process. The second type of content that you want to intermix with is engagement based. The purpose of an engagement based post is to engage with people. So in those kinds of posts, you're going to have some sort of activity or call to action, or something that the reader can do, that your audience member can do to engage with the post. So a couple of examples of that. You could do a poll. I've just started doing polls. I really like them, especially in the author group. Polls are fun. You may have seen I see these in the book clubs all the time, this or that. And on the left side, you'll have the thises, on the right side, you'll have the that's, and people go through and mark which ones they like better. And it could be everything from winter stuff of hot chocolate versus cider, you know, sledding outside to by the fireplace, this or that's. For you, you might do different tropes. You might do different um, types of books, or you might do just things you personally like and enjoy. You know, do you like this or do you like that? So it's an engaging way to connect with people. Your book cover, sharing, you know, two or three book covers as a this or that. You know, that can be a thing too. Like, do you like the left or the right cover? Do you like, I wouldn't necessarily take their advice as gospel in terms of which one you use to publish, but it can be a great way to get engagement and feedback. You can do reader Q&As. If you have readers who ask you questions through DMs, through other posts, um, through your website, through your newsletter, take those questions and create copy out of it. Hey, a reader recently asked me blah, blah, blah. How would you answer them? And that becomes the engagement part when you're asking them to provide the input. You can tell them, hey, it's Ask Me Anything Day, and you can ask them to ask you questions in the post. That would be an engagement post. Let's see. Anything that starts a discussion. So you could start a discussion about genres. Do you like romance? Why or why not? Do you like spiritual growth books? Why or why not? You really need to word those in a way that's going to make people want to answer them. So that's something to be mindful of if you're going to start those kinds of discussion conversations. Make sure that you're asking questions people would be interested in answering, not just something you want to know the answer to, or something that is just, you know, here, I'm going to pull this out of over here and pull this over here, and that's my questions for the week. You want to make sure that they're questions that are going to start a conversation. Okay. Um, think of it this way, you don't want to ask how's the weather, like those superficial, but you also don't want to be like what's the hardest thing you've ever gone through in your life, because people aren't going to go there either. So you kind of want this middle ground of conversation starting. That's the heart of it. Okay, so we've got informational, you're telling about your book, or what you do. Engagement is asking for their input in some way. And then you've got promotional posts. And this is the one I think everybody thinks of when they think about marketing their book. Oh, I have to sell it. And there is a way to do promotional posts without being salesy. You can share snippets from your book. You can share, you know, a couple of paragraphs of a scene. You can share some dialogue. You can share reviews. You can share your book's journey, like I mentioned before. That can be informational, but it can also be promotional. It can be both. Some of these things can be multiple things. Just keep them, again, the goal is variety. You don't want to always do the same type of post the same way on the same, like that gets really boring for people. So mix them up. Uh, is it okay to say buy my book? Yes, there's nothing wrong with that, but you're going to see a lot more response and engagement from posts where that's kind of the secondary part of it. So like you could share that scene and then be like, did you love the scene? Do you want to learn more about Aurora? Here's the link for her full story. And then the link is your book. Like you're still promoting it. You're just doing it in a way that's a little more interesting for people. It's that storytelling again, sharing and connecting. If you write nonfiction, knowing who your ideal reader is for both genres is important, but especially for nonfiction, because you're going to speak to her needs. You're going to speak to her struggles and where she's coming from, and you're going to help her understand why she needs the book. That's better than saying, buy this book, or here's my blurb. Don't just throw your blurb with a link to Amazon. That's the salesy part that feels yucky. And so if you're doing that, that might be why you don't like it. So let's get creative and use that creativity of our writing that God's gifted us with to lean into how we write our content. All right, informational, engagement based, promotional, personal connections. This is another aspect of being a writer that kind of feels uncomfortable sometimes because we don't like to talk about ourselves. We don't think, but you are someone's next favorite author. Have you thought about that? Like someone is going to love your books. I discovered somebody back in January, a genre I've never read. This author's from Australia. I don't know how she ended up in my whatever it was that I found her, but she quickly became my favorite author. I read 9 of her books in January. That's a real thing. She may be sitting there in Australia not realizing that Michaela in the US is obsessed with her books, but I am. So think outside of what you know and think about what God can do. Okay, how he can reach people that need your words and your message and your story. So personal connection posts, sorry, I went on a tangent. Personal connection posts are things about yourself, your favorite books, what you struggle with in your writing, daily inspirations that have inspired you. This is the part where you're connecting with them and they're getting to know you as a human, not just the writer of the book that they love. So think about that. If you're a cat person, share pictures of your cats. I am not. It doesn't mean I won't read your book. If you love cats and you post about cats, it doesn't mean I'm not going to read your book. So stop trying to be all things to all people. Be who God made you to be, and know that it's okay if we're different. It's still nice to get to know somebody who is different than me. Okay. And the last thing I want to talk about for content types is user generated content. This is where your audience is actually creating the content for you. Um, the best way I can think to explain this is that you want to encourage them to post about your book and share your content. So when you create, let's say you wrote nonfiction and you're pulling some of the verses from your book and you're sharing those, create them in a way that's visually appealing and people want to share them. Write something that goes with it that connects with people that they want to share it. So user generated goes both ways. It's things that you generate that you want them to share, and ask them. It's okay to say that. Hey, if this connected with you, share it with your friends. Share it with people who need to hear it today. It's okay to say things like that. Um, but it also goes the other way. If your readers are sharing content that's relevant to your audience, share their posts to your page as well. I I'm a writer. I write spiritual nonfiction. So when I work with writers who write spiritual nonfiction, I will share their posts sometimes to my page. I've done that for a couple of different people when their audience, they're celebrating, hey, I just reached 500 followers. And I will share that to my page and celebrate with them because that's who we are as a community. I believe strongly that collaboration is stronger than competition. So I love to collaborate and I love to cheer other people on. That's who I am. So these user-generated posts are also showing people that I care about other people, which is a part of me that I'm letting them see. So hopefully that makes sense. We talked about content types. I want to talk about writing the copy. That's the words that go with your posts, okay? There's a couple of options for creating copy, and the trick is really to find the one that works best for you, the one or two, or maybe three. So I'm going to give you guys some things to try, and don't do it once and rule it out. Try it a couple times, see if you get a feel for it. But some tips I want you to remember. First of all, this is so important because we can get really discouraged when we look at numbers and we look at how many people saw it and nobody liked it, or I only got one like and it was my husband, whatever. First of all, if your husband likes your stuff, good for you, because my husband is not that guy. Okay. He loves me. He cheers me on in other ways, but it is not through social media. Okay. So the first thing I want you to remember, the first tip, remember that not everybody sees every post. In fact, very, very few people will see every post that you make. So don't worry about saying the same thing in different ways. It's totally okay to do that. If you are talking about a character and you want to talk about that character again, go for it. Like no one, very few, I won't say no one, very few people see every post that you write. So being repetitious is not a bad thing. Here's the suggestion that I have for you. And I haven't gone into the content formats yet, so I'm doing this a little bit backwards. But long form content is long form, like a blog post, a devotional, several paragraphs of something. You might be using a long excerpt from your book. All of that is considered long form content. And what I want you to do is write long form content first. Because from that, you're going to be able to pull out points. You're going to be able to pull out quotes, little snippets, maybe even scripture from that, that can become other pieces of content. right? So if you go into the deeper growth author group, that's where I try to do this the most. Look at some of my posts. Look at like, oh, she said this here, but then she also said it here. Um, in a shorter way or in a different way, but it's the same thing I'm saying. That's okay. And when you write the long form first, which most of us are comfortable with because we write books, then you can go through and pull out those little pieces to use for shorter things. Another tip I want you to consider doing when you're writing your material is to bundle your process. There are 3 steps to social media that if you bundle them, it's going to make you feel more productive and it's going to make your brain hurt less because you're letting it stay in one lane of traffic at a time and you're not trying to do all the things at once. Okay. So the first thing is ideation. That's the part where you come up with your ideas for content. That is a lot of times when we're also trying to write our copy, and that makes our brains hurt because we're trying to be creative and have ideas and also trying to write, in grammar and English. And then there's scheduling. That's the third part. So if you create space for yourself to do these separately, you have ideation time. That is strictly brainstorming ideas, whether you do it on a notepad, you do it in an Excel spreadsheet, whatever process you want to use, put your ideas. Oh, I want to give backstory to this character. Oh, I want to talk about all the verses that address this topic in my book. I want to highlight how I came up with this chapter, what God was doing in my life when I wrote this chapter. Those are all ideas. Brainstorm them, put them down on paper, get them out of your head, and get them down. Think of it kind of like a rough draft. You're just getting it out, you're just getting it down on paper. Okay. Then there's the copywriting part. It's like, okay, now I need to create from those ideas. I need to actually write copy. And that's where you're going to want to do, like I said, the long form first. That works really well for me. May not work for you. That's okay. Try it. If it doesn't work, change it. Nothing wrong with that. So you're going to lean in to the copywriting part of it. And you might have 20 ideas, but you're probably not posting 20 times. So you're going to write copy for maybe 3 or 4 of them for this week. All right. Or you write one long form piece and then pull 4 or 5 things out that you want to use for the week. That's going to be your copywriting part. And then the third thing is scheduling. That's when you're actually like, okay, I want to post this one on Monday. I want to post this one on Wednesday. I want to post this one on Friday. Oh, this fits better on Tuesday because I'm also doing this thing. Or, I just learned that Wednesday's National Hot Dog Day. So my scripture verse about hot dogs, that's not a thing, I know. But that's where you're going to do the scheduling. Okay. So you're going to think through logically what the order and reason behind it all is. When you give your brain permission to stay in each lane, it functions a little bit more smoothly. It's not so chaotic and you're not trying to do all the things at once. So whether it's all in one day, if you do all of your social media on Saturday, take a chunk of time for ideation, take a break, come back and do copywriting, take a break, do scheduling. For me, I do ideation on Mondays and Tuesdays. I do copywriting on Wednesdays and Thursdays. I just redid this. I think that's what I do. And then Fridays, I think, is scheduling. I could be wrong, but something like that. I just tweaked mine. So that's how you want that to look. Okay, so you're going to bundle those processes. Another tip for fiction, this I'm going to give you for fiction and nonfiction. For fiction, pull pieces of your manuscript that you can utilize. Things about character arcs, story arcs, plotting, character development, your tropes. Tropes are very trendy right now. Readers, for some reason, are obsessed with tropes. Enemies to lovers and all of those things. That's a great this or that post also. Which tropes do you like? Anyway, sorry, my mind's going in the direction. So pull those things from your story, pull from your book, pull from your outline, go through it when you're ideating. I don't even know if that's a word, but I made one. When you're ideating, go through your book and pull out ideas. Use reviews. Take someone's review and then narrate that as why this is a powerful piece of story. For nonfiction, same thing, use your outline, chapter titles, scripture verses, pull quotes, things that you have like pulled out as key things from different chapters. Those make great social media posts. If you write a devotional or a Bible study and you have journaling questions, use those for content. Ask the journal question. If it's not too deep and personal, again, be mindful. If you're asking someone what's the hardest trauma you've ever had to survive, probably not a great social media post, but if you have a journal question that's How do you see God working in your life today? That could be a good social media post. You know your audience, so I won't speak to that specifically, how vulnerable they're willing to be, but that's where you want to go with that. Okay. All of those things that you've already done in your manuscript are valuable copy for promotion in social media. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys an example. Let's say you wrote a blog post. This is kind of an example more for writers than for readers now that I'm thinking it through that I came up with. But let's say you wrote a blog post on 5 tips for writing stronger characters. Okay, you're encouraging other writers. You could do a LinkedIn article expanding on each of those tips. So it's a 5-part series. You could do a Twitter thread that summarizes the key points. You could do an Instagram carousel that breaks them down visually. You could go live on Facebook and highlight one of the tips that way. So we're going to talk now about what all that is I just said, which is your formats. Okay, your content formats. Each platform offers different options to you, so know which ones are available with the platform that you're working in. But here's some ways to use them effectively. Long form content, I mentioned that at the beginning. These make great blogs, articles for LinkedIn if you're writing in the professional realm, Facebook posts. There's a lot of long form copy in social media for Facebook now, and people are reading them. So you can use those for deep dives into those topics. Short form content is Facebook posts, tweets, LinkedIn updates. Those are well for like engagement. You want to keep it a little bit shorter. Those long posts tend to not really, if you want someone to engage, a long form post probably isn't going to do that. That's going to be more informational. Reels and stories. So there's 3 types of video formats. There's reels and stories, and then there's also lives, and I'll talk about that separately. But reels and stories are Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I think those are the main ones right now. I might be missing some, but um, reels are great for book teasers, author insights, fun challenges, things like that. I'm trying to think of anything else. Yeah, so that's where I would kind of go with those. Those are when you're just really short little tidbits in front of people to get things in front of your audience. Live videos are longer, so you don't have the time restraints of a story in a reel. The live videos are a great way if you want to host like a Q&A session. Make sure you promote it well in advance so people know to be there, because there's nothing worse than going live for a Q&A and having no one asking you cues. Not super helpful. The way around that is you can actually accumulate questions outside of that and answer those live. So if no one is on there, you have some questions to go through that people have submitted separately. You can do a book reading live, discussions on your writing process. I've even seen some writers do like a screen share of, how they outline a book or something like that. I don't do that because my process isn't that clean, nor I'd want people to see it, but that can work too. So you've got reels and stories and then lives. And the last one is they call them carousel posts. It's where there's multiple images in one post, and they usually go step by step. So it's like a guide, so it's something that kind of walks you through a process visually. I've seen it with character introductions where like the first one might be like, meet Karen. And then the next one has a picture of Karen and says something about her. And the next one says, what she likes. And then something else says, what her struggles are, or who her people in her life are. So you can use a carousel for that to kind of build a character profile for someone. These are great on Instagram and LinkedIn. They do work on Facebook also, but it's a little, you want to make sure they go in order. I think Instagram flows a little easier with carousels, but you can use them on Facebook as well. Okay. Um, I want to give you guys some simple strategies to start applying all of this. And if you haven't heard me, some of this you might have heard before, but I want to make sure. I'm going to repeat myself because you never know who's heard what. The first thing is pick 1 to 2 platforms. Do not try to do all of them. You will burn yourself out. You'll get frustrated, and it's hard enough to do where you're comfortable. So start there. Start with 1 or 2 platforms that you enjoy, where your readers are. If your readers aren't on the platform you enjoy, you will have to stretch yourself a little bit, but focus in on the platform one or two platforms where your readers are. If you're not posting consistently now, start with 2 to 3 times a week. Mixed contents. Okay, so you have an informational, you have a promotional, and you have an engagement. All right, next week you might have a promotional, uh, personal connection, and maybe you share something from one of another writer's page. Okay, so keep that variety mixed in. Get to the point where you're posting 2 to 3 times consistently a week with that mix of content types. And then once you've got that comfortable rhythm where it feels natural and it's not so hard, increase your frequency. However much you're posting, you can always be posting more and it will not hurt you. Very rarely does someone unfollow or leave a page because it's too much information, because again, they're not seeing all of it. So start with that, get that build in. I'd say 3 times a week at the minimum, two if it's new and you're overwhelmed, but three is really the lowest you'd want to go. And then you want to build up to, okay, I'm doing 3 times a week, I'm going to try for 5. Okay, then maybe you want to go daily, or maybe you don't do the weekends and you want to do twice a day, a couple times a week. So start building your frequency once you're comfortable and have a good rhythm and pattern for where you are. So you're picking your one or two platforms, you're posting consistently before you start adding, unrealistic expectations on yourself. And then I want you to engage with your readers. Um, Responding to comments is so important. Participating in the conversations. If you're going to do an engagement post and start a conversation, be in that conversation. Don't let it be amongst your readers. Like, show up and be engaged and active with what they're sharing with you. You've asked them a question, they've engaged. Now be part of that conversation. Um, it's okay to say thanks for sharing or something like that. I've seen that. Generally, though, that's not a conversation. Like, think about it in real life. If you ask someone a question like, what is God doing in your life right now? And they said, oh, I've been learning obedience. That's great. That's a conversation. It counts. But if they say, I've been learning obedience, and you say, oh, really? What? How is he teaching you that? Oh, you want to know. Like, that's the kind of conversations you want to be having. You want to lean into where they are, ask questions. Um, it can get to a point in social media where it feels like, okay, now we're having a whole private conversation in a public forum. Don't necessarily need to go that deep. You can always move it to DMs if that's the case, but engage with them, have an actual conversation. Repurpose your content. I mentioned this before. A blog post can become multiple tweets, a reel, and a LinkedIn post. Okay. A chapter in your book can be Scripture Sunday, Encouraging Tuesday. I'm making these up as I go, but obviously, because they're not great, but you can lean into that and repurpose that content. If you do a live video, I've done this. Like, I'll do lives with you guys, and then I'll pull a piece out of this and I'll use it as a nugget for something else. Or I'll expound on one aspect of it in a training nugget to go deeper with that one idea. Okay. The last thing I want to mention with social media, just a tip, is to use hashtags wisely. The purpose of them is to increase your visibility, not your invisibility. That'd be bad. We want to increase your visibility so you're not invisible. And the important part of this in my mind is that you research a hashtag before you use it. If your last name is Wright and you want to use Wright as your hashtag, search that first and see what kind of content comes up. I've worked in churches for a lot of my career, and you'd be surprised the number of youth ministries that do not research their hashtags, and inappropriate content is somehow connected to the hashtag that they chose. So just do a quick little hashtag search before you start using it on everything. Make sure that it's fitting, the things that are coming up are fitting to your brands and your message. Okay. Hashtag writing community, hashtag book lover. There's a lot of those kind of generic ones. Amazon, or not Amazon, Facebook will even tell you, I think, I'm not sure about Instagram. Facebook will tell you now when you go to put the hashtag in how used it is. Under 1,000, over 10,000. So it kind of shows you how much reach that hashtag is going to have for people. All right. A couple of pitfalls to avoid. All right. I mentioned this before. I'm going to say it again. Don't just post buy my book content. You won't feel good about it. Your readers won't feel good about it. And it really doesn't work that great. Okay. Don't ignore engagement. It's about relationships. Social media exists to be social. So engage with people. If you go to bed at 8 o'clock at night, don't schedule your post for 7 p.m. because you're not going to respond to them until the next day or the day after. If you go to bed at 8 o'clock, and I'm using that as an example because I tend to go to bed at 8 o'clock, I try to post between 3 and 5 p.m. So I have time to actually engage with some of the comments that come through before I go to bed. Okay, so be mindful of that. Do not spread yourself too thin. Do not be on too many platforms or posting too often that it's not sustainable for you. You will get discouraged, you'll get frustrated, and it won't move you forward in your marketing goals. Okay. Um, Another pitfall is not utilizing free author tools like your Amazon page, your Amazon author, or your Goodreads author page. Those are free and readers are on those platforms. So why wouldn't you want to be there? Show up, create. You're not posting on them the same way you do on social media. You just need to create a profile, connect your books to you, and be there. So when people are looking for you, they have something to know about you. I love this. I do this with, especially with nonfiction. I will look at the author's profile page on Amazon to see if they're biblically centered the way I am, or if they're, have different theologies maybe than I do. I might not want their book. And they don't want me to buy their book because I'm going to give it a lower review because it's not for me. So let them know who you are. For fiction, I love this. The author I found back in January that I've been obsessed with. It's not faith-based stories, but as I'm reading them, I'm like, okay, I feel like there's some undertones of spirituality in this. There's some gospel truths laid into this plot or this character. And so I actually looked her up, her author profile, and I found out she is a Christian. Um, and even though she doesn't write Christian fiction, that is coming in through her books, and that's why they're also clean and other things. So it's interesting, and people do look at those. Okay. Avoid being inconsistent. I would much rather have you post twice a week, every week, than 5 times this week, no times next week, one time the next week, 7 times the next week. That does nothing for your algorithm. It's a real thing. And it does nothing for your credibility. It makes, it just feels like people are never going to know when you show up. So I'd rather you do twice a week, every week than do that. Okay, a couple of free tools. I mentioned using them. Obviously, there's the author pages on Goodreads and Amazon, but also Canva has a free option that is great for creating graphics for social media. Meta is the parent company over Facebook and Instagram. Meta has a business suite that you can schedule posts with. You can engage with people through DMs. Don't love the DMs on there, to be honest, but you can schedule stuff ahead of time. This is important when you're on Facebook and Instagram. If either of those are your platform and you want to schedule stuff in advance, use Meta. Do not use a third party. Those third party things like Hootsuite, Planoly, Buffer, all those, they don't, Amazon doesn't like, sorry, not Amazon, Meta doesn't like that in their algorithm as much. So if you want visibility, use Meta. They created it for you to schedule, and if you use it, it's actually going to help you. So just a fun fact. There are hashtag generators that are free online that you can go in to help, research your hashtags and get some ideas. Mentioned Goodreads, Amazon Author Central, and then scheduling tools. They are out there. Like I said, Buffer, Hootsuite, those kinds of things. And they do help you manage across multiple platforms efficiently, but use them with care because at least with Meta, the algorithm much prefers that you use their platform for scheduling. Okay. So that was a lot. I know it was. This video will be available to you down the road. You don't have to absorb it all now. But hopefully I've given you some foundational concepts that you can lean into that give you either your starting point or your next step, depending on where you are in your marketing. And if there's nothing else you take away from this, I want you to know that social media marketing for writers does not have to be salesy and overwhelming in order to be effective. Okay. Take those small, easy steps to promote your books. to get to know your audience, for them to get to know you, build that loyal readership, stay true to your passion, stay true to your calling and your gifting as a writer. Start small, stay consistent, and remember that it's more about building relationships than it is about selling books. Okay? At the end of the day, and that feels so much more natural to us, doesn't it? Even as introverts like me, I would much rather build a relationship with someone than sell them something. Okay? So that's our Talk About It Tuesday. If you have questions, you can send me DMs, you can drop them in our group, whatever you need to do. I'm happy to answer them. But I look forward to hearing how you're implementing this and what kinds of results you see once you start. All right. Have an awesome rest of your day.